Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers.
Right? No judging. No judging.
The millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.
OMG, baby, tell them.
Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers. I'm Justin Fox. I'm joined here by Kelly Kennedy. Kelly, thank you very much for joining me on the show today.
It's an honor to be on with you, Justin.
I appreciate it. I know we kind of bounced back and forth, and you said you weren't feeling well again yesterday. So glad that you're here. Glad that we were finally able to get it. And you're all well. Let me do a quick little intro. I'll read off sort of what you had sent over here. So Kelly Kennedy is a visionary entrepreneur and esteemed business leader renowned for his groundbreaking contributions to the field of business development, a field we both know and love. As the founder and CEO of Capital Business Development, Kelly has propelled the company to the forefront of the industry, offering innovative solutions that drive tangible results. In addition to his executive role, Kelly is the creative force behind the Business Development Podcast, a critically acclaimed platform that he founded, produces, and hosts. The podcast has quickly become a global phenomenon with over 111 episodes and a presence in the top 100 charts in more than 20 countries. Notably, the Business Development Podcast has received prestigious accolades, including the Best Business Podcast Award from Quill Inc. in 2023 and the title of Best Canadian Professional Business Development Podcast by Feed Spot in 2024. Driven by a relentless pursuit of excellence and growth, Kelly is committed to revolutionizing traditional business practices. Through Capital Business Development and his podcast, he empowers professionals worldwide to embrace innovation and achieve unparalleled success. Kelly Kennedy's visionary leadership, coupled with his strategic acumen and expertise, has solidified his position as a trailblazer in the business development arena. His unwavering dedication continues to inspire individuals and organizations, shaping the future of business growth and development on a global scale. Say that 10 times fast. But yeah, anyway.
You killed it. Like, I can't even believe you got through that. I never thought anyone would even read it.
Well, it's been read. It's in the blogosphere, the webosphere, the world right now as written. There you go.
Oh my goodness.
I was going
to say, I'm going to have to update that. I think we're at 131.
130? Okay, there you go. 111, 130. I mean, who's counting, right? Over 100, who's counting at that point, right?
Changing all the time.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, where do we start? I mean, obviously, the podcast is a great place to start, or the capital business development. Where do you want to get into, sort of jump into first? Or I usually give the guests a choose your own adventure. Do you want to go, let's talk about where you came from, a little bit of the backstory, or do you want to dive into what you're doing now and maybe we can get to the backstory? Where do you want to go?
You know what, Justin? Let's just help some people today.
At the
end of the day, we can talk about my boring ass backstory, or we can give some people some awesome business development advice.
Having also been in business development, both for my own businesses and others for 20 years, that's an interesting okay. So I'll throw a question. What would you say is the biggest issue that companies, startups, businesses, small businesses face when looking to kind of grow? And that's a very open-ended question, but what do you think is sort of, what's the biggest concern or issue that you find that businesses have when they're looking to grow?
They're just unknown, right? Nobody can buy anything from you if they don't know who you are.
100%. So getting the message out there to the masses by arguably any means necessary.
Yeah, and I would argue that, like, we live in a time now where active marketing, which is kind of what we do at Capital, which is more, getting on the phones, getting on the emails, getting really in touch with real people, not through digital means, but through you, right? Is that piece that people are forgetting about, that over time we're becoming more and more over reliant on digital means. And I'm not saying that they're not good. They are. But there are many other means that we need to be considering. And one of them definitely is active marketing, which is why I created an entire podcast on it.
We joked sort of just before I was saying, like, that smiling and dialing, the old picking up the phone and literally arguably cold calling or calling that client again, sort of farming, if you will, a list of existing or prospects or leads, is really a skill that's been almost pushed to the wayside, right? A lot of people overlook it. They think I'm just going to go on social media, create some content, and really that's going to drive people to actually act, when maybe that one-to-one touch, whether it is just sending out a quick email to a few people like, hey, it's been a while, or picking up the phone. I think a lot of people are afraid these days to literally pick up their phone.
Yeah.
Everyone's ready to text or send an email, but no one really wants to jump on the phone. And maybe that's a sign of our age. I don't know. I don't know exactly how old you are, but my age, I mean, it's funny. I was just talking with somebody. We're sort of discussing our kids. I have a 10-year-old sort of getting to that point where people are having phones, and he has I think he's saying a 12-year-old, 11, 12-year-old sort of, she's looking at phones, but the cell phone and that kind of, but I remember, yeah, literally just picking up the phone. That
Yeah.
was the only way you could really get someone on to speak with them, right? The internet, and arguably I guess the internet existed in my entire career. I will say that, but maybe at its infancy, but
Not the same.
yeah, not the same kind of way where you can just now put stuff out on social media. So what would be sort of we want to dive right in. What would be, from Capital Business Development, like what is a tactical thing that you encourage people to do, or how do you structure the way you maybe guide people or coach people?
Sure, sure. So I'll just walk you through, the
Yeah.
steps that we use and
Yeah,
see how
yeah,
people
yeah,
can
yeah.
use them. So we always start with people's digital footprint. So, before you can make all these calls and make all these introductions and send all this information, you have to have something to send them. You have to have some
Right.
place to send them to, whether that be your website, whether that be, your brochures or whatever type of marketing material you have. You need something.
Yeah.
So I always start there. And at Capital, we always review marketing materials, websites. We hit on websites pretty hard, and we do it on purpose because, in 2024, your website is the equivalent of your 20-story skyscraper in the 80s,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Location is
Yes.
your website now, right? It's
And I
not
can't
the brick
tell
and
you,
mortar corner main and first kind of thing.
and you can have gigantic companies who've invested nothing in their online footprint, especially when it comes down to their website. It probably has outdated information. It might not even be relevant. Most websites, if you take a look at them, if you've had a website for 5 years, I can almost guarantee you're not doing exactly what you said you did on that website 5 years ago, because business is changing so quickly.
Yeah.
And so anyways, we always start there, and we make sure that online footprint is done correctly. And that's where we encourage everybody to start.
Perfect. So yeah. So I mean, obviously, website. I mean, I hope it goes without saying, if you don't have a website in 2024, you're arguably not a business, right? I mean, if you
Yes.
don't have a domain and an email and a website, like if you're sending something out, such and such at gmail.com, and you've got no website, you're probably really not in business, right? So, and it costs, $10 a month to probably get the domain, get an email through whatever, GoDaddy kind of thing, and get that, maybe a simple little landing page set up. Social media is another one that you mentioned, sort of like having that presence, whether it's 5 followers, at least if you have that, the main sort of 2 or 3, maybe focus on one, but maybe the main 2 or 3 or 4, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, maybe TikTok.
Yeah.
I think TikTok's one of the better ones going forward, although now with what's happening, maybe that's changing. But yeah, you definitely need to have that presence. So what's the next step? So now you've got somewhere to drive them traffic. You've got maybe some sort of landing page, arguably an opt-in, ideally to capture leads and sort of be able to continually communicate with them. What kind of is the next step that you would kind of encourage them to kind of get that growth or that message out there?
Yeah, well, you led right into social media strategy, right? Which
Right.
really has to be that next step. And you're right. We need an online presence. Me and you are pretty good examples of this. We have both pretty good online presences, and we also have, a show that we use
Right.
to, spread our word to the world and educate the world, but also bring eyes back to us, right?
Yeah.
But I would argue that 2023 and on, I would say that no business owner can no longer hide behind their companies, right? People want to know who's running these organizations. What do they value? Who are they? Are they real people? Are they a freaking AI robot? Right? We don't live in a time where it's okay to hide behind yourself anymore, or hide behind your companies. And so I'm always encouraging business owners and people that are in that founder stage, or if you're a leader of an organization, it's time to take a look at how you can, bring a forward face to the world, because it's no longer going to be okay just to hide behind your company.
Yeah, it's the, people buy from arguably, pre 2023 sort of brands they love. Now they buy from people they know and trust. And I mean, whether people like them or not, I think Elon Musk is or even Steve Jobs, or prime example of that, where they are the face of a business. I read something or was watching something, each of them, they're obviously huge examples, but have more followers than the companies they lead on social platforms, right? So people are really tuned into them as individuals. And obviously that trickles down. If you're a local, business, and people, you're in front and center in the community, used to be, were you at church on Sundays? Were you at the local sporting game, or, participating in the community, part of the clubs and organizations, within the community, and you were sort of represented that way. Now, social media is that sort of online version of you being in the community as the leader of your company, right? And kind of having that face, putting a face to the brand, if you will, right?
Totally. And I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but like, since I started my show and that community really started growing, so many of those people have become supporters in so many different ways, whether it be from business leads or whether it be from sponsoring the business development podcast, kind of taking us to the next level.
Yeah.
But we've had just so much success with people that we would have never ever connected with had we not put ourselves out there and put that
Yeah.
outward face to the world.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know exactly how many, probably in around that same 100-ish, 120 episodes. I started doing this kind of the one take. It was a different name at the very beginning in 2020 when COVID hit. I was sort of at home thinking, how can I keep having conversations with people, new people, but not be so like in your face, but just let's have some conversations, create some value, put some things out in the world. And I think the first I did, I was like, the idea was 21 days of ask an expert. And I just reached out and said, hey, let's talk about your expertise, and sort of it evolved. But yeah, definitely a lot of the connections I've been able to make, just through this podcast have expanded, just the broaden my horizons, and like you said, and kind of expanded our reach and connections into the world. And yeah, they've, resulted in maybe some business, but definitely a lot of awareness around what we do,
Yes.
and kind of that way. And that's good. Like that's kind of, you're creating value for everyone. Both of us are going to get value from this because we're both going to get some exposure. We'll tag each other and connect, and your network and my network will kind of
That's
overlap,
right.
and they'll see
Yeah.
your content and what you're up to, and my network will see what you're up to, and vice versa. And we'll kind of, there'll be a lot of overlap, and grow together, right? And that's kind of, it takes a village almost to grow a business, right? It can't
Yes.
just be you alone, right? So okay, so we've got social media. What would be some of the strategies? Podcast is obviously one. What are some of the strategies you would kind of encourage people to implement that you're working with?
Yeah. Okay. Well, this part is going to be hard for people to hear.
Yeah, yeah,
But
okay.
let's say that you've got your social media strategy done, your website's great, your marketing materials great. Look, the reality is you're just going to have to go old school, because if you're using digital marketing only, like you said, we've been talking so much about brand awareness, right? And that's what social strategies do. That's what digital marketing does. All these things shine a big, bright spotlight, but you still need somebody to reach out to these companies and get them ahead of the need, right? I always consider digital strategies, websites, things like that, they're a passive strategy. And if you get a few leads from them, amazing.
Yeah.
But you're spending a lot of money for those things too, right? Especially with like Google ad campaigns or anything like that. You're investing a considerable amount of money, and you have to think, am I really getting what I need? Am I getting my money back, my ROI? So many companies put it out there and just say, I'm doing it, but they're not looking at what is the ROI on this work that I'm doing. I'm literally going to tell almost all of the people listening right now, if you would just pick up your phone and make 100 calls a week, you would get a better ROI than probably all the money that you guys are spending on your digital ad spends.
Yeah, yeah. Like, so this back to what we were saying at the very beginning, that one-to-one connection, having those conversations, yeah. So it's sort of like the attention or awareness is kind of, if you look at that sort of funnel model, you've got attention, interest, um, desire, action is sort of the A to one. I mean, there's a million different ideas that, but yeah, you definitely, building awareness, giving a bit of that brand awareness is one thing, but that direct sale, that direct conversation, that direct kind of like walking them through, yeah, they've maybe shown awareness. One of the things I talk about too is if you spend all this money driving the traffic there, and they get there and they don't do anything and they bounce and they go away, it's wasted, right? You really have to
Yeah.
have a way to capture right? That attention and awareness so that you can re-engage, re-up with them. So arguably, if you have their phone number, now you can call them. If you have their email, you can send them an email. I wouldn't call them every day, but arguably as many times as feasible until they tell you to go yourself, arguably, but you don't want to necessarily get to that line, but you definitely want to have a conversation with them and educate them along the way, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today is, I just want to like clarify, we're talking business to business.
Right.
This stuff does not typically work as well B2C. Digital ad spends work really, really well with B2C, but it's a completely different market and you're getting them in a completely different way. Business to business is about creating relationships. It's about creating repeat business over a long period of time. And so part of that job then is an active marketing process, which is what we do at Capital.
Right.
And that's where we're essentially qualifying, we're finding the right people, we're identifying the locations and the industries and the sub-industries, right? And then we're making sure that we have the right people at the organization.
So
and then
the
we reach out,
decision
like you
makers,
said.
basically, yeah.
That's right. And it's different for every product type too. And I think people need to remember that it's not the president every time. It's not the supply chain manager every time.
Right.
You have to figure out who it is. But if you can get that right person, in LinkedIn is obviously an amazing place to find those people. And you can get into that cadence. Like you said, we do one call a week. I think one call is a great amount. It's not enough to piss anyone off. And you can call them fairly consistently until you either book the meeting or disqualify. But that's the key, right? We have to be picking up that phone and we have to be asking for meetings. And just look at it. The more meetings you have, the more relationships you're going to generate. You're going to get ahead of the need, which is what business development, active business development is really about, which is where you want to be, right? You don't want to be lumped in with 15 or 20 other companies when people have the need. You want to be in their mind before it. And that way you're one of 3 calls instead of one of 15.
Right. No, it's key that you differentiate between the B2C, B2B, because there is as you said, a very different relationship, because B2C is sometimes somewhat reactionary. Now you want to be branded, you want them to think of you, and then they're searching and they're coming to you, and you can be nurturing them along the way if depending on the product or sort of service. But B2B, definitely there's that relationship part, and so that's where if you're having that, like you said, weekly kind of flow. I remember I worked for an investment company, and I had a region, and I'd have sort of the calls that I would make weekly and the calls that I'd make monthly, and then sort of the quarterly, like, hey, it's been a while, how are you doing, kind of thing, right? Or and you'd have sort of like different levels of engagement with different people, and kind of, now that was more of a I was more of a farming mindset than a hunter kind of mindset.
Yes.
Which there's very different. One, you're trying to get new business, get new business. Others, you've got a existing sort of clientele or base that you can sort of reach out to and maybe bring in more from. And each, like I said, each business has its different objectives, right? And different goals. Now, obviously they want to grow, but maybe you want to grow. And this is where I think I'll segue this into a little bit. A lot of people talk about customer acquisition costs, right? But they don't always look at the lifetime value of a customer. And so
agreed.
They very much, you could, if you can make the lifetime value, at 10x, you can now spend more on that acquisition cost, so a lot of people don't realize there's 2 sides to that equation. I don't know. What are your thoughts on kind of the lifetime value side versus the customer acquisition costs on a new business development, not so much on the farming side?
You know what? Well, I'll just talk to it. I actually have a different opinion than a lot of people on this. And me and you are from that world where business development and account management really got lumped together, right?
Okay.
But me and you both know that if business development and account management get lumped together, which one is more enjoyable?
Well, account management. Nobody wants to be calling and told to go fly a kite kind of thing, right?
That's right. And so many organizations right now are doing this model, and they hire a business development person and they come on for 1 year, 2 years, and they get this list of business. And then they say, all right, I'm done. I'm just going to manage these accounts, which is fine. But in my mind, at that point, your business development has just gone out the window. And so I always recommend to organizations to have specific people for business development, and then have a great handover system where after, an order or two orders, you can then put these people in with an account manager, and both jobs will get done more effectively. You'll have happier clients, and your business development people will be constantly finding you that new opportunity.
So it's kind of like I said, there's the hunters and the arguably the gatherers or the farmers, right? You've got the hunters out there,
Totally.
new, but drumming, getting those people through the door, and then kind of arguably closing them on that initial sale, if you will. And then you've got the ones that the account managers that are then going to nurture that business and kind of maintain that relationship. And they're often, yeah, you're right. They're different. They're definitely different skill sets. And yes, a lot of people would love to just be the farmer, right? Just go out and till
account
the fields.
great.
Yeah. This very consistent. Things are pretty consistent. If you can bump up people's orders a little bit and just kind of manage that relationship. But then, yeah, you really need, there's definitely a sort of and I wonder how you compensate maybe differently. That might, I mean, I don't know if you get into like compensation and sort of the employee sort of side of things or how that's working.
I agree. I think there's a lot
it's
of perks to account management, right? Like there's not a whole lot of jobs where you get to go and hang out and go golfing with your client for the day. Right. So I agree. I think compensation could be less on the account management side, but it still needs to be enough that they're invested in keeping those clients happy and that they're going to stick around for a while. So you got to weigh it out.
And also I was thinking too on the hunter side too, like almost, I've worked in commission only roles where it's like you better, joked earlier that smiling and down, you better be picking up, making the 100, 150, 200 calls a day, and maybe reaching to 10, 15, 20 people, having conversations, because you are reliant on getting the deal done, right? Getting those clients through the door, and then handing it off to a more of a relationship style manager, right? That nurtures them along the way. There's
and I can already see people puking at 150 or 200 calls a day, and I don't advocate for that at all. By the way, even with our teams at Capital, for the most part, I say give me 60 to 100 calls a week. And here's the deal: if you're doing proper qualification, if you are doing all that pre-work, right? Like people that are making 200 calls, they're not doing any pre-work.
Zero.
They're shotgunning and hoping for the best, and that's a shitty way to do business. Okay?
I 100%. So I'm not gonna lie. This was one of my early roles, early 2000s. Arguably, like we sort of joked, the internet was not exactly, and it was just like, here's a list of 1,000 Fortune 500 CEOs, and I would literally dial 100 to 200 dials a day on
wow,
not a rotary, but it was arguably a boiler room. What's that?
I said, how did you even get up?
It was a boiler room. I worked there for almost 3 years, so it was fun. But don't get me wrong. And we were selling like $100,000 Super Bowl package for 10 people for the day. And arguably we were trying to close it in a call or two, right?
Wow.
So it was high pressure sales. But it taught me a lot. I mean, not to get into me, but just, it taught me a lot of like how to kind of talk with people, which I think is a lot of things. One of the things, and maybe we'll segue into that, is a lot of people are uncomfortable having a conversation with somebody that they're not, they don't know, and just kind of diving into that conversation and being like, hey, you know what, we're starting here. We're I don't care what our levels are as far as in our companies, but we're here. Let's talk about what we're having a conversation with, right? And I think that's maybe from a business development perspective, you can't be like, oh, hey, Jack, or Susie, or and very like, they're like, you know what, I'm busy. I don't have time for this, right? Like I've got other things to do. Get to the point, or let's move on, right? So maybe do you coach people in that?
Totally.
Like communication style, or
absolutely.
I'm mocking it all, and I apologize. I'm
no, that's okay.
I
agree. I think the art of conversation is a skill,
Right.
right? And we are doing it less and less and less because most of our world now is so in tight with our families and our close knit friends, and we don't mind calling them. But you're right. When it comes down to reaching out to other people, to networking, Yeah, we have a lot of anxiety about that. And you know what? I'm just going to be the first to say I've been in business development at this point for 13 years, sales and business development for 17 years.
Yeah.
I still get nervous. I still have days where I'm like, I don't want to pick up the phone, or I'm having an interview with someone. I'm shaking in my boots because they terrify me, right? Like the reality is it doesn't go away. And I think the sooner that we just accept the fact that you are always going to have nerves, you're always going to have moments, you're going to feel like an imposter at times, but the more you put yourself in that uncomfortable situation, the better you get at handling it. That's the truth,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like a fear that people have, but the only way that you're going to get over it is to just face that fear. And yeah, maybe day one, that's making one phone call. And day two, it's two phone
Which
calls.
is
Now, by
breaking
day
the
100,
ice for some people.
that's right.
Yeah.
But something else really cool happens, and you know this from being in a call center. By the time you hit about 5 to 10 calls, you start to hit something called a cold call cadence. And the next, 5 to 10 calls just fly by. And it gets easier and easier and easier the longer you go. The hardest calls you're going to make all day ever are your first 5 calls.
The first couple. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, obviously we were kind of, there was a bit of a script, you kind of going off a script, you're trying to get the CEO, again, that was sort of like ultimate decision maker to put, sign the check for $100,000 kind of thing. But, it doesn't have to be that person, or you can, you mentioned there's different people in different roles in different kind of sales environments where, maybe it is the purchasing manager that, is in a, healthcare facility that, you're going to be speaking to if you've got a product you're selling, or, whatever into the public sector, right? A lot of times you get into RFPs and stuff, but there's definitely relationships that you can build with people, right? So you focus solely on the B2B side, obviously with
Yes.
your clients? Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. Like that's my world. That's where I grew up in, and
Right.
I know it well. B2C, the reason I do that is B2B, I consider to be an 80% active marketing, 20% passive marketing space.
Right.
And that's, by that, what I'm saying is 80% of the time you should be making phone calls, direct emails with the right people, asking for meetings to get in front of them and build that relationship, ask for the order in person, right?
Right.
20% should be that website, your social media strategies, and your digital marketing spend. But I would say B2C is the exact opposite. You should probably have 80% on the passive, 20% on the active. So it's a different world, and there's better people at that than me.
I mean, it is, you have your skill set, you've built up that, and that's good, right? So obviously you're coming with expertise in that specific field for sure. So let's talk about, let's shift a little bit, talk a little bit about some of the businesses maybe that you would support. Like, so if you're making a pitch or kind of going through your customer persona or whatever, who are some of the businesses, out there that might be watching this that are like, hey, you know what? I could use Kelly's help. I'm afraid to pick up the phone, or I've got what is this phone you speak of? My device does only email and social media. What's this phone app portion, right?
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have 3 branches to our organization. So the first one is the direct business development. So if you just want a company to come in and say, Kelly, handle this and call me in for the meetings, we'll figure out what your growth goals are. We'll figure out how many meetings it's going to take to attain them. We'll identify the right people. We'll review your marketing material. We can update it if need be, and we will market you to all the right people. We'll set up the meetings. We'll attend the meetings with you. We'll push it to next steps. That's the direct side. Typically, companies we're looking at in that are looking to grow by more than 2 million in a year. So that's kind of the demographic for the direct. It's a little more expensive, but obviously the growth potential is a lot higher.
So it's like basically growth, business development growth, like you're boots on the ground, you're doing the arguably the nitty gritty dirty work, right? Getting them.
That's correct.
The leads,
all the stuff that you don't want to do. If you're hearing this and saying, Kelly, I don't want to do any of that shit, that's where this part comes in. That's where
the done for you, essentially, right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And then with our business development coaching, which is a relatively new branch to our company, super cost effective. I think we're $3,000 for a 3-month program. So it's very, very affordable. And what we'll do is it's a 6-session system set up over 3 months. We'll help you implement a full business development process. We'll identify some of those fears, some of those anxieties, and help you get over them. And we'll kind of coach you and give you that weekly support that you need to just make those calls and get it done and start to grow your business in your way. And the cool thing about the coaching is like you said, it's like once it's set up, you have a program that you can use forever with your organization. You have processes you can use forever with your organization. It will provide exponential exponential value over time to anybody who coaches with us. And then the last part is advertising. So we talk about the passive side. Well, the
Right.
business development podcast now has, I think, 160,000 downloads. We typically have anywhere between 10 and 15,000 a month on
Wow.
average.
Wow.
And we offer podcast advertising with anyone who wants to sponsor with us. So we have packages available on that front, and that will allow you to reach a worldwide audience, primarily North American, but worldwide as well.
Of people interested in business development and sort of just business,
Any type of,
anyone that's sort of, on
yeah,
the
because just
topics.
like
Yeah.
you, we have an executive audience, right? A worldwide
Right.
executive audience. So
Yeah.
if you're just looking to get in front of the right people, podcasts like mine and yours are a great one to advertise with.
Yeah. Hey, if you want to, I don't know if I have a worldwide audience or I don't know if anyone's going to watch this, to be honest, but anyways, we're putting it out there. But I haven't quite gotten into the like download side. So you're uploading it. So maybe this is an interesting part.
Sure.
Why don't we talk a little quickly about this? And then, I don't know if you've got to run here, but, podcast. So I was sort of thinking like, how do I word this? So podcast, somebody wants to set up a podcast. What would be sort of the structure? Walk me through it, because arguably I put this out on LinkedIn. I've got, 27,000 people on LinkedIn. So I kind of rely solely on that. I push it out, people see it. Usually there's maybe get a few hundred, few thousand views into it. We've got a YouTube link, very small following there. Facebook, maybe 5,000. I kind of push it into our social media. But again, I'm very aware that there is a podcast world, right, where you've got the audio and stuff like that. Maybe walk through what that kind of looks like if somebody were to start today, episode 0, or they have no episode 1, they want to put it together. Like walk through maybe a very high level, step by step, what that might look like.
Sure. Well, I think before you start any podcast, first off, decide if you're comfortable with being out in the world, because as you know, once you put this out there, it's out there forever and no one's ever taken it down from the internet. So
No.
I think you have to decide, are you comfortable with the fact that you and whatever information you are going to put out there in the world is going to be out there in the world forever? If you are okay with that, then the next step I would say is just pick yourself up a microphone. Doesn't have to be an expensive one at first. Just go grab one. A Yeti mic is a really popular one. USB, you can plug it into your computer and just record a trailer and see what you think of it. See if you think that would be cool. If you think you have, a lot of content you could go over, outline, say 50 show episodes. 50 show episodes will give you about a year's worth of content.
Okay.
So if you look at it from that standpoint,
sort of
I would
one
always
per
say
week
just
kind of
write
thing,
out
basically.
a list. Yeah, just write out a list of different shows that you might do.
Yeah.
And just challenge yourself to write them out. And remember, it's not about the length of the show. It's about the quality of the show. So always try to deliver great quality in everything that you do. Keep your messaging consistent.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself, right? And understand that people will like it.
Yeah, I mean definitely. I like that last part. Definitely people, you'd be surprised. Most people would be surprised. Yes. People are interested, especially if you have some expertise or you've done things in your career or life or whatever, people are interested in hearing it. I think that's where TikTok is really good. Like a lot of people are telling their own sort of raw stories versus the sort of fabricated, very, put together, polished kind of Instagram, if you kind of look at the two. But it's interesting. The first thing you mentioned, you got to be willing to be in public, which goes back to almost what you started at the beginning, where all founders, if you will, or business owners need to be in the forefront. So it almost is like, if you're going to start a business, it's almost like you can't just start the business. You now also have to agree or want to be in the public eye, right? So it's sort of like by starting a business, you're basically signing up to be in the public eye, right? In essence, right?
I would agree. Yeah. And I would say at this point forward, there's not a lot of choice in the matter. That if you want to be a business owner, if you want to change the world, you're not going to be able to do it hiding behind your company anymore. You got to have that forward face, and you got to be a leader.
Exactly. Or even a business leader, like within a business. Like if you're the leader of the business development team, like you need to kind of be doing different things and getting that message out maybe for your company as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be right from the top, depending on the size of the organization potentially, right? I think there can be different leaders also within a company that can, maybe different parts of the company, right?
I would agree.
Yeah.
Think about it. Socials is absolutely required. There's
Yeah.
no business on earth is going to survive without a social media presence anymore on
Yeah.
some level.
Exactly.
So I don't think we have a choice anymore, Justin. I think we're at a point where it's like, look, if you want to be a leader, if you want to lead an organization, if you want to change the world, you just have to put on your brave face and get out and do it.
Put on your big boy pants and make it happen, right? Yes. Or big girl
Like, I don't know.
pants,
It's
whatever.
interesting.
Big girl skirt, big boy pants. Yeah, whatever. I don't know. Big boy skirt, big, yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah,
You
whatever
want.
it is, right? It's
Whatever floats your
2024. You
boat.
do
Yeah,
you.
yeah. You do you. Exactly. Right. But no, I agree. So, okay. I appreciate Kelly, you joining me. Why don't we do it? Where can they find? Where is the podcast? This kind of, yeah, where can they download the podcast and be one of the 140,000 people that have downloaded it so far?
Yeah. So you can find us literally anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So we're on every major platform. We're on every major podcast platform. The Business Development Podcast. If you search business development, we're number one pretty much everywhere, which is super
Amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
Could have never called that, man. Starting a show talk. And that's the other thing. We were talking about starting a podcast. And when you start a show, you're talking to a wall, like you never know where it's going to go, but you have to take that leap because you never know where it's going to go. It could be something amazing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, even just I've looked back and we'll kind of I've sort of one question I'll usually end up, but just quickly, I look back at some of the first episodes I did of this, and I'm like, oh my God, look at that idiot! That guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's like stumbling over every. I mean, I still kind of, I guess it's just the way I talk. I kind of bounce a little bit, but just kind of stumbling, very unsure, I didn't really know how to ask questions or even kind of, and I've been in business development meetings and face to face, especially, pre-COVID, Zoom arguably wasn't a huge thing. I mean, I used it a lot in business, but again, a lot of face to face and stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. And then as you evolve, you get better and better at it. As you said, you do things that you're not comfortable with, but you're kind of comfortable with. So anyways, where I'm going to just throw a couple quick questions or one question. Where do you see kind of business development evolving or your company evolving over the next sort of 3, 5, 10 years, I guess would be kind of the final question.
Okay.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. Okay. So what I want people to remember is that business is about relationships. And so make sure that an AI is changing everything. I get it. There's lots of cool things coming out. There's lots of digital marketers knocking on your door saying, come pick me. I want you to remember this in every choice you make moving forward with growing your company. Is this going to build relationships that can lead to long-term repeat business that is win-win for both me and my customer? Yeah. Make sure that the answer is yes to all of those, and always encourage your employees or yourself to build relationship with the customer, because relationship is what truly leads to wealth over time. Yeah, no, for sure. And what is it? It's not your net worth, it's your network, or your network is your net worth, I guess. Is your net worth. Yeah, exactly. It works both ways. Yeah, exactly. Sort of, I'm the king of bastardizing quotes. So you throw me a quote, I'll repeat it in sort of backwards, but anyways, and sort of get the point across. But awesome. Well, everyone else, Kelly, thank you very much for joining me. Check out Kelly on LinkedIn, all the podcast platforms. Be sure to check it out, the Business Development Podcast, and obviously Capital Business Development. Yeah. Sorry. Got a little bit of a, but yeah, appreciate it. Everyone else, thank you for joining me. Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it. Everyone else, thank you for joining me. This is One Take, powered by Backers. I'm Justin Fox, Kelly Kennedy, and we are going to stop recording now. Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by Backers. Right?
No judging.
Yeah.
No judging.
The millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.
OMG, baby.